Sifu.
Welcome, friends. Thanks for being here. Billy and I have been having a laugh figuring out the technical stuff. And you were saying this is just like life, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. I was just mentioning in Chinese, Dian means electric, now means computer. So Dian now, I mean, now means brain. So Dian now means computer. And when I first heard that, I said, oh, this is exactly how it is with us. We have viruses of the mind. We have breakdowns. We got to reboot. We have glitches. We go blue screen. I know we like dogs. We go blue screen, and all kinds of stuff happens. It's just being human. It's just part of the process. Yeah.
Well, welcome, brother. A
Welcome.
warm-hearted welcome. Welcome, all friends who are here today. And anytime you're watching this, this is my friend Billy Sunday Mars. And Billy, in my interaction with you, I've just, first of all, before we go into the great depth of knowledge and background you have, I just want to acknowledge what a warm, compassionate, caring, benevolent heart you have. And I believe that's the essence of what's called upon at this time and age. So thanks for being here, brother.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me and allowing me to be of service. That's what it's all about. I'm honored and honored for the opportunity. Thank you.
So let's just give a minute or so about who you are, a little bit about your background, so we can really slide in and have people listen with receptivity.
Well, as I mentioned, my dad died when I was 4.5. He actually died saving kids in a fire in Roxbury, Mass. He wasn't a firefighter, but he was a bystander. He went in and did that. And my mom, because of having to raise 4 kids on her own, uh, the stress led her to smoke, and she eventually ended up with cancer, and she passed. My brother uh, had kidney failure, and this was all at the end of my mom being in the hospital. So going through that struggle with him, I spent a lot of time in hospitals. And not only if you're there for someone you care about, you spend a lot of time outside of the rooms when they're doing changings and doing things. You spend time talking to other people, and you go to different rooms and you hear other people's stories, and you realize at the very depths, especially with what's happening now, of what it's like for people to be so uncertain and so unsure of what's going to happen next, and being told this is the way it can be, this is the way it could be, and just knowing life is difficult. Like at the beginning of the M. Scott Peck book, The Road Less Traveled. And so I wanted to try to figure out how I could play a part in helping people stop their suffering, especially unnecessary suffering. As I mentioned, my friend Roger, EMT, I borrowed some of his books, and I spent time in the library and learning about different medical issues. And I grew up Catholic, and as I mentioned, got booted from Catholic school for asking where Jesus went for 18 to, from 12 to 30, and started looking in on what made him him. And of course, then living in China, and I mentioned Kwai Chang Caine, and started studying Buddhism and Taoism and Sufism and the different spiritual arts. And it led me to understand that the suffering was not only biological, it was due to our spiritual capacities. And we're not taught how to work with those things, according to as well how much trauma. Like I mentioned, I had been through trauma. I ended up bulimic for 18 years, something like that. And because of the monks in China, when I was over there as a performer, they helped me to look into why I was bulimic, and they helped me to, with meditation practices and different practices, to calm myself inside, to be able to look directly at the difficulty, to look at the grief itself, and to work with it. And they saved my life. They saved my life. So I said to myself, and as I mentioned, having wonderful teachers growing up, I said, I can't just take this for granted. I have to be, if I'm fortunate enough to be part of what helps people heal the same way they help me heal. That's pretty much in a nutshell.
Thank you. I always feel it's a sort of a disservice to ask someone to compress who they are in a minute or two. It can never be done, but the essence of who you are, I appreciate that. So let's just dive right in. Um, what do you feel is going on from what you've seen in the circles, the friends, the circles that you are, and what's the best help that you can provide in the sense of insight and knowledge, please?
The thing that we look at as human beings is our capacity. There's a saying that anybody can sail a ship when the water is calm, but when the water gets rough, you have to become the captain of your ship. Like that song, The Captain of Your Heart. And to do that, we need the capacity to self-manage. I love the teachings of interpersonal neurobiology and polyvagal theory. And the teachings are self-monitor, self-manage, and then modulate, which is exactly what the monks taught me to do. And it's about a practice to allow whatever teaching we're learning to go through our conscious, which is the mid prefrontal cortex, the third eye center. It's not just the left and right brain, the actual seat of our capacity to mature. I call it that because it teaches us to deal with truth as it is, to see it clear. We can't be present or aware, which are capacities, unless we're able to develop the part of the brain that is typically damaged or underdeveloped due to trauma. When we do that, we allow that part of the brain to then manage what we're seeing and experiencing, to decide whether it's something that's beneficial or non-beneficial, not only to ourselves, but to others, and whether or not we want to make it a part of us. Now, how do we do that? Through repetitive training. We're practicing, we're doing mantras, we're allowing ourselves to visualize, and as the secret, the teachings of Neville Goddard, Wallace Wattles, Florence Scovel Shinn, as they taught us to bring those teachings in and make them through feeling a part of us, we embed them in the subconscious. As Aristotle said, we become what we practice most. So what we want to do is make what's good and beneficial part of us. It becomes literally neuronally represented. In other words, there's neurons in our system that represent that new pattern. And we can recall, recollect in order to speak. And better still, is studying the martial arts. Because if somebody comes up to you and confronts you, you don't want to have to think about what you have to do. And as a martial artist too, the best way to fight is to not fight. If you can come up with a way to, without even hurting the other person, stop the confrontation, then you've succeeded. And that is what we want to do within ourselves. We want to stop not only the violence outward towards another, what we might say, what we might do, how we might even look at them that would cause a difficulty in how they're perceiving us. We also want to stop the violence inward. Now, what is violence inward?
Mm.
That's addiction. That's when we drink, when we smoke. And our system, what's called our ego adaptation, is designed to help protect us. And it doesn't always know how to protect us in the most beneficial way. This is why working in an addiction clinic, when somebody does a drug, you don't say you're bad for doing the drug. You say, tell me what you're using the drug for. What are you trying to not feel, or what feeling are you trying to avoid, or what feeling are you trying to relieve? And that's what our system is actually trying to do. So we look at people and we say, why did they say that? Why are they going through that? And when we can, back to your question, right now, we have people, because we're human, we want to connect. We're designed to be social. We want to connect. There's things that words can't say that a hug can, right? There's
Mm.
oxytocin, there's serotonin that's released. There's all kinds of wonderful chemicals that, and this is the beautiful part again, only 7% of our communication is verbal. 55% is body language, 38% is the tone of what we're saying. So in our time now, the thought that we could give somebody a telehug and say, even to say to them, because our mind will understand, can you feel my arms wrapped around you? Can you feel how much I care about you? Because the operative thing is to feel felt, to feel. We're feeling beings. We're very much feeling beings. So in our time now, the dis-ease, and I do call it a dis-ease, uh, corona, which we often don't realize, it's close to coronary, which is the heart. It's close to crown because it actually has a halo on it, COVID. It has a halo on the actual virus. And crown, just like our crown chakra, uh, and the fact that it's infecting our lungs, which is the seat of our capacity to breathe, which is where the word spirit uh, comes in, because spirit means to breathe. It's affecting us on all kinds of levels, causing us to not be able to breathe. And when we can't breathe, we can't inhale or exhale, which allows us to calm down. The vagus nerve calms our system. It releases what's called acetylcholine. And I have another thing to talk about. Vaping and cigarette smoking, going back to my mom, nicotine is what cigarettes and vaping have. Vaping releases that toxin, that neurotoxin nicotine, which is actually going into the same ligands, the same synapses as what acetylcholine does for us. And acetylcholine is naturally occurring, and we can get it in health food stores. God forbid they don't tell you that. But if this were to be made known, it would help a lot of people who think it's getting the what they're trying to use to calm themselves through the vagus nerve, exhaling, releasing that, releasing and relaxing our muscles. You can get that through acetylcholine, which allows us to think, then allows our prefrontal cortex to come back online, the mid prefrontal cortex, then we can think. Whenever we run into another person, and we just talked about that rebooting, and you can tell everybody, we can laugh, you and I, about my computer illiteracy, how incredibly bad I am at it. I mean, there's bad and then there's me. It's bad. And but that's when we need a reboot. And a reboot is the breath to relax, to allow the prefrontal cortex to come back online. The vagus nerve, polyvagal theory, Stephen Porges' wonderful book. There's so much to talk about how our relationships go, because we're unable in a moment to say the beneficial thing, and we say the wrong thing, and we got to forgive, for we know not what we do, because in that moment we're not online.
Yes.
But what it does say is, as I had a chance to speak to Wayne Dyer a while ago, and he said something that he's mentioned on stage. He said, when someone squeezes an orange, what comes out of the orange is orange juice. We can't expect grape juice to come out, or grapefruit juice, or whatever. So when we're stressed, what comes out of us is unfortunately what's in our unconscious. And that's what partnership is, because when that comes up, if we can not be triggered ourselves, if we can, as the Buddhists say, not shoot the second dart, if we can hold that moment and an opportunity to say, oh, okay, you Tonglen practice is beautiful, Pema
Yeah.
Chodron. I
Let's
let's
dive
hear.
let's dive into a few of these things that you've shared.
Yeah,
You talked about the acetylcholine, you talked about the vagus nerve and the
yeah,
depression, and and you talked about holding in this internal energy, perhaps rather than shooting the second arrow.
yeah,
Well, one of the practices I've been doing here since we're in our home quarantine with my family,
yeah,
we made the decision. We sat down together, but it was about a week ago, and we made the decision
yeah.
not to raise our voice and get
Ah,
angry with each other.
right.
And that when and to increase every morning, every single day, the amount of acknowledgement
Yes,
and,
yes.
and gratitude, and hey, but personal acknowledgement of each other. Hey, I want to just thank you for making that meal. I want to thank you
Yeah,
for, for doing the gardening, like all the things that we're always already doing, that it's in our heart.
right.
There's a natural state of, if you will, generalized gratitude, but to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
more explicit about it, more, here we can hug because I've got my family, we're together,
yeah,
and that's been very powerful. But combined with the whole essence of, if there's anger, if there's discontent, we're going to inner process it. We'll express how we feel about it, but we're not going to project. And I've made a vow, and my family's followed suit, is simply not to get angry with one another. If anger comes up, frustration, tension, boredom, whatever is happening due to the pressure of being in
Oh
isolation.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's beautiful. And what's happening is there's a profound deepening that's happening through that self-awareness, through
Right,
that self-regulation, and those three
right.
stages that you talked about. So I'd like you to, maybe share more about those three stages as well and how we can do that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, like I said, having great teachers that put me in real time, and I did what's called the hope challenge, the hope practice, and whew, when they put me through that, literally, I mentioned, I joked that they thought they were trying to kill me, but in the reality was, it disconnects old patterns and processes, because we always have competing processes and competing cues and competing commitments, competing as Carolyn Mace would say, competing agreements that we have with ourselves, and so what is happening at the very root of that anger coming up is our amygdala is firing from some type of old wounding. And when that amygdala, which is the middle of your brain, and what they found out is the amygdala, almond shape, it's small, it has action cells and storage cells. So it stores what we think is our most pressing fear. And also it has cells that cause us to act on them before we can consciously regulate it. So when it comes up, we have to notice it as well as we can. And we do that by that exhale. So in other words, what they taught me to do was, as soon as something comes up, exhale. Because the amygdala is like a fire, and like a candle, if you cover up a candle when it's lit, it takes away the oxygen. When we inhale, we add oxygen to the fire. When we exhale, we put the fire out. So to prevent the immediate, and you've done martial arts. I cracked up because you and I, we've probably seen all the movies that have come out about martial arts, and everybody goes, and all that stuff. And that's not what they do. Everybody I've watched in China or Japan, when something happens, they go, and then they just look. And they look and they smile, because they're not going to fight the person. The person they're across from doesn't know they're not going to fight them, but they're looking for a reason to make them laugh. They're looking for an opening to help them. And laughter, you can't laugh without exhaling. So as soon as someone exhales by laughter, the vagus nerve is activated. It disarms people. Comedy is beautiful. Comedy heals. Laughter heals. And so when we're in those moments when it's difficult, again, you mentioned gratitude. The work of David Rico, being an adult in love and being an adult in relationship, and the five A's: attention, appreciation, affection, allowing, and etc. Those are important, and those will counteract the four horsemen of Gottman when he talks about contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Because, as I mentioned, often the reptilimbic part of our brain causes us to react, to repeat what we normally do, because that's what it is. It's an old storage center for what we've already learned to do. It causes us to retaliate or retreat, otherwise known as fight and flight.
Mm.
When, if we're able to access the mid prefrontal cortex by the exhale and get that back online, the electric brain, we can respond, we can reframe the situation, we can refocus it, we can rename and relabel. And when we rename, we tame. We can tame what it is. And the brain actually has, I love these understandings and studies of this, because this is why I can't understand. I mean, if we understand each other, we could never kill another being. We couldn't, because there's aspects of us that are capable of feeling what another person feels. There's parts of our brain that can think what another person thinks. And people with autism and Asperger's spectrum, unfortunately, that part of the brain isn't often on for them. And if they tested people, often it's far more to an extreme. People that we perceive as sociopathic, that part of the brain isn't on. So in other words, that wasn't downloaded into their computer, the capacity for empathy, the capacity for love, the capacity for looking at another person. Those aren't even there, and they can be developed just like a muscle. If we practice those things. What else is beautiful, and this is what's going to be really important for those of us who really love spiritual training. There's a part of the brain called the posterior superior parietal lobe, I believe. And what it does is when we get upset, it shuts down. But when we're relaxed, it opens up, and it's like a radio receiver for literally what's happening in the universe. In other words, we're one with all. This is neuroscience saying, hey, remember those people, those woo-woo people that said that, well, oh no, they were right. Oh, yeah, so there we go. And then we can connect with all, and the capacity, the people who say, oh, they have clairvoyance. Yeah, people who say they're intuitive. Not only uh, women have a more advanced, typically right brain than men do, so a lot more are capable of receiving things. Uh, it's another reason why women are so beautiful and wonderful, not only because my mom doing what she did when we witnessed her go through the battle with cancer. Uh, she was Wonder Woman. She was Superwoman before all these other shows. She was it. But how my dad treated her, and I often ask, I say, well, how did my dad treat my mom? He says, oh, Bill, oof, you got some shoes to fill, because he adored your mom. He did wonderful things. He cared for her. He opened the doors. He held the chair, the coat. And so I, learned about chivalry from that. I said, well, what is that? Is there a process of that? And of course, chivalry came up. But we, as males, and if you see my post, you see this is important for me. Women are not only the portal for children to enter this world, and no one gets into this world but through women. But also there's an understanding, a deeper understanding that, especially intimately, women that are loved and adored. I mean, look at the Greeks. They wouldn't do a fight. They wouldn't go to war without going to the goddess at Delphi.
That's right.
So women are the portal to understanding. Even the word Sophie means wisdom in Greek.
Yes.
So that's where wisdom comes in. Often the guys were out doing things. Where do we think the kids learn from? And there's a saying that in India, I believe you said, the mother's the child's first guru.
That's right.
So we've got to do a better job of honoring, not protecting because we think they're not as strong as us, but protecting because we respect and honor what they represent for us as human beings. We've just got to do a better job overall. We've got to stop the violence towards women, especially now, being with the stay-at-home order. There's a lot of stress, and teaching men that, hey, I understand you're stressed. Let's teach you how to work through a process so you can take a breath and say a better thing instead of reacting. Can you say a kinder word in appreciation of what she's doing for you in that moment? Because she's not only worrying about you. If you got kids, her instinct is mama bear, and you don't want to take off mama bear. So
Wonderful. Absolutely. What you just shared around the awareness of awareness, the awareness of my
meta
emotions.
awareness. Yeah.
You mentioned Tonglen. Could
Oh yeah.
share about that and maybe even guide us through a minute of it or something? That'd be really good.
Tonglen, giving and receiving. Tonglen Atisha was a monk, and many years ago, and that was the closest thing I'd heard to the understanding of forgive, for they know not what they do, which to me was one of the most, if not the most profound thing because not only do they not know what they do, but why. It's love your enemy, for if you love only those who love you. So can we watch ourselves and witness and wish for others, not just wish for ourselves, but say, if I'm receiving this, may someone else receive this joy that I'm receiving now? May others not suffer. And if someone else is suffering, may I be compassionate. Com means with, passion means suffer, actually. So may I be able to help them with their suffering and ease their burden of suffering. We often hear, and I hear this often on the news or with the news, why watch the negative things on the news? Well, this is what the depth of spiritual practice is. And okay, here we go. This is where it gets kind of the depth of it. This is what it is for us. We're often taught to breathe in the good and out the negative. The true spiritual practice, the depthful spiritual practice, means we get strong enough to breathe in the negative and exhale the positive. So if somebody confronts us with a negative thing, they say something or do something negative, we actually say, thank you for allowing yourself to open and express the pain you're in at this moment. Because if somebody's trying to hurt us, it's because there's a hurt coming from them or within them. And if they are allowing you to be a possible vehicle for their healing, then the blessing is ours that they actually said what they said to us. And Tonglen, I mean, I listened to Pema Chodron talk about when pain is the door, when all these things, the deepest, scariest secrets in humanity are because we refuse often to look at, as I mentioned, religare, which is the real word religion. It comes from Latin, and it means just to reconnect. It's the same exact word as yoga, yuj, to yoke, to reconnect. What are we reconnecting to? People say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. What are you reconnecting to? What are you breathing into to reconnect to? And there's wisdom, there's universal wisdom and universal understandings that if we connect to them, then we can do the right thing. Right here, into the unconscious, and unconsciously do the right thing, to unconsciously know, unconscious competence, to have the unconscious competence to reverse that negative understanding that's being moved towards us through the practice of giving and receiving, through the practice of being able to receive and then give love, to not respond or react. When we react is usually negative, respond is positive.
Yes.
But the deeper teachings, in my quest to try to understand Yehoshua, which was his real name, as I mentioned, I spent time in South Florida, and I would go in and speak with the rabbis. They would joke, "Hey, Rabbi Bill, you're back. What do you want to know today?" So I would ask them. I'd say, "Okay, what does this mean?" Because they wrote the first half of the Bible.
Yeah.
Oh, there was them, and So as somebody who grew up Christian, I'm like, well, why am I trying to tell them what they wrote it? That's like telling somebody this is what you wrote. That's not what I meant. And what they said was the word il shatan. Shatan sounds an awful lot like another word we know, right? That's where it came from. It means opposition, resistance. So when our shatan, in Chinese shung qi, our anger comes up, that's going to suggest to do most likely a negative thing. Can we be with that suggestion that says, this person just yelled at you, yell back, say something to get them back, shoot second dart? Can we be with that? And I have them here. I joke, I have my bands here. I showed that I hold these, and I have a whole practice around this that I use with pads and different things to increase the stress, because under stress we regress. So the more stress I can progress with, the more I actually adapt my brain and system to respond. And you purposely put yourself in the fire. The great Buddha saying, Lord Buddha, how do we escape the heat of the summer's day? And the Buddha said, walk through the fire. When you come out the other side, the summer's day will no longer seem hot. Oh, I didn't want to hear that one. I'm a guy from Boston. In Boston, we say, no, I don't want nothing to do with that one. No, I don't want. Keep that wicked far away from me.
It's such a part of warriorship training to face adversity,
Yeah, yeah,
face some form of consciously selected adversity in a training
yeah,
in a training ground to increase incrementally the duress
yeah.
that you apply on yourself through pressure training, someone screaming at you, and then learning to process that.
Right.
The main thing is not to shoot the second arrow,
Yeah.
you said.
Right. Right.
And the way we learned it was to soften the front surface of the body.
Right.
This is where the natural protective warrior animalistic contraction happens in the face, the throat, the head juts out, the breath becomes more closed in. We're more meant to run forward and blow over, run away. And yet, if we can open under duress.
Right. Right.
So my invitation is everyone at home, when you're feeling duress, is to soften the face, soften the bridge of the nose, soften the mouth and the jaw, soften the throat, the chest, the heart area, the solar plexus, the belly, your genitals,
Right. Right.
and then allow ourselves to receive the fullness of whatever, and stop calling it anger, stop calling it they, like start to remove it and just see it as a field of emotional energy. And this is the
Exactly.
homeland, is to breathe it in. Although it, in the new age systems, no, don't breathe in negativity. No, but of the spiritual dimension, if you breathe it in, and we recognize that the heart is the ultimate transmutation, built
Yeah.
divine. It's the God within us,
Yeah. There
the
you
divine.
go.
It's the goddess within us. That when we
Yeah.
breathe in the heart, we're not going to pollute the heart with the negativity. We're not going to stain the heart. We're not going to become negative ourselves. What will
No.
happen is the inherent natural goodness and transmutation capacity of this divine center will naturally radiate out a reciprocal energy that will counter or rebalance what you've breathed in and create
Right.
expansion rather than a contraction. And to
Right. Love
sit in
expands.
Tonglen, right? Tonglen, to sit in this.
Yeah.
So this is what we've been sharing. So
You just explained polyvagal theory. What
mhm.
he talks about the social engagement system. Our face, this whole thing. When I work with people, uh, especially with resistance training, you watch and you see, typically the eyebrows come together, they grit. No, 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 no. What we're doing is we're aging right then. And so if we relax, because again, we pick up the body language, the social engagement system, and it's unconscious. It's picked up before we even know we're doing it. And the other person has picked it up. Their unconscious has picked it up. So what you just mentioned, the heart, and ready for this, the heart is 65% neuronal tissue. It's more brain than muscle. It has 5,000 times the electromagnetic field of the brain. It picks up and it goes out around us, and the other people pick it up. We're, as I mentioned, not only the part of the brain, the capacity, there's so much we don't understand about ourselves. We're so gifted, and there's not a single person that's here to take up space. Every single person has value. Every single person has a beautiful story. If we sat and listened to it, we could help everybody feel significantly more important by pointing out to them what they've done and what they've overcome just to be here. And what, not only are they here, but what they're meant to do. Everybody has a purpose, and that's what we're here to help with. uh, that's one of the things I talk about. I don't, when people say, well, why do you spend so much time working on your health, I go, and again, I'll go back to it, I have to outgrow my stupidity. So I have to work really hard at this because I got a lot of dumb in me. I got a lot of stupid in me. Daily, third person, it's like, oh, Bill, that one took talent. How'd you come up with that one? Oof. And so having wonderful people like yourself, having the wonderful teachers that I'm able to fortunately find books on and read their stories, that they're condensed so I can learn, as the Chinese say, from the overturned cart in front of me. You know that one, see? You laugh at it too, because I'm not saying I'm any good at it, but I end up in the cart off and go, how'd I end up here? But the our system can, and I mentioned this, grow biologically younger. We only age due to our inability to deal with stress. Every time we look at, and we spend so much time thinking that aging is natural. It's actually not. We don't age chronologically, we age biologically due to our system's capacity to handle stress. How we interpret stress psychologically, and how we're able to increase our hormones. And that's where, if we regulate ourselves with how the Taoist and Tantric practices happen, with more respect, with a committed, beautiful relationship to understand each other, not only are we able to see our misunderstandings and correct them, so intimacy and trust and respect are mutually apparent and visible and palpable. When I wrote the book Fit for Love way back when, people, they laughed. They said, "Oh, this growing old thing," and I see people now that I saw when I wrote the book, and they said, "You're the guy that wrote that book. You what what?" And I go, "Look, there's nothing special about me. There's nothing about me that isn't there with you as well. If you learn and take the time to understand how not only you function, but how a partner functions, how." And this is, again, I often say that men come out of the womb and the addiction is trying to get to the comfort to be back in. And how men actually go about it with reverence and honor and understanding is what allows both to, I call it, harvest the hormones, because we increase through exercise. The right way we exercise will increase the hormones in our system, but only through intimacy, the right way, can we re-release them into our system. People talk about free testosterone and human growth hormone. And as I mentioned, brain-derived neurotropic factor, neurogenesis, myelinogenesis, which myelination of the nerves in your brain. An athlete has 30 times the myelination of a normal person. So it's not a matter of, are they just better? It's, well, no, they have better wiring than we do because of repetition. The same thing can happen with relationships. If we rewire, as Joe Dispenza calls it, rewire our system by having the right hormones, and we have, this is why people say, well, they forget as they age. No, the stress breaks down the system, the connections aren't as good, the wirings are frayed, and so we can't think or act like we usually would like to. Or, this is what's beautiful and better, because I have a client I work with. She's 68. She climbed Machu Picchu. She climbed Spain in
Wow.
she climbed a mountain in Spain, and the 30-year-old tour guide was walking, and she's walking with the tour guide up the hill, going, just talking with him, and the tour guide's going, ah. But we trained her. We worked with her system. She's got a wonderful partner, and if people understand how to be in relationship, and you have a wonderful, beautiful relationship, and that's, you can see the respect, you can see the love, you can see that's the foundation, because without that, nothing else is possible. People don't realize, as I mentioned in one of my posts, especially men don't realize what can happen for a woman. A guy, if he understands his woman, will never have to worry about going to see a 4th of July celebration or New Year's Eve. No, women are perfectly capable of that right in front of our eyes. And they're beautiful. I mean, if we take care of that system, and to go back, that all helps to recreate the hormones that allows us to recreate ourselves. We have procreative energy and we have recreative energy. We can recreate ourselves over and over again, and our bodies can literally recreate muscle, nerves, our internal organs can repair themselves, can increase productivity, can increase feel, can increase the capacity to understand one another, can, like I said, grow biologically younger. I can do things now at 55 that I couldn't do when I was 25. And I was an athlete. I did all kinds of stuff. And people say, well, wouldn't you want to be 25 again? Nope, because I'm a little bit less of an idiot than I was then. I'm not saying, I still got a whole lot of idiotic stuff to work through in my meditation, which is my meditation spaces and back there, and I write it down. And I got to call, it's tough now because I got to reorder pads because I got to write down the stuff that I got to work on. And I got a stack of pads, you notice stuff every day. Got to write that one down. But if we're willing to do the work as human beings, not only for ourselves but for others, we can't expect others to do the work and change. Again, it's like asking the same thing with being angry, asking another person to take the poison and to change it. We take, and the poison kills us. We have this argument now, and this one is something that's really important. We have this argument now, and people say, Bill, I go by, sometimes I hear CNN, sometimes I hear Fox News. And I go, yeah, because both, you can hear, as Robert Sapolsky says, are functioning from different parts of the brain. Democrats and liberals function from the insular cortex, which is the feel part. It feels what another person feels as well, and it feels what we're feeling. Turns out that the Republicans and conservatives function from the amygdala, which is more fight and flight. Hence the thing with, got to have my, firearm to protect. Well, if you're in fight or flight, yeah. And as I mentioned, traveling, I mentioned I was fortunate enough to have a job. I drove Corvettes across the country, and I drove through middle America, what we call rural America. The outskirts of America aren't America. There are people that live in places where they barely see. Social distancing, that's their life. And how do they deal with that? Well, there's more drugs. There's the opioid crisis. Remember, they're in fight or flight most of the time. And all they have, and again, not condemning or condoning anybody, the Tao does not take sides. All they have to do is shoot at cans. That's their form of entertainment. And it's sad because we both have to try to walk in each other's shoes, because they're saying no guns, take away our rights, and the people in the city say, well, people are getting shot in the city, and these massive this unfortunately shootings, which are people functioning from trauma. We need universal mental health care.
Yes.
But back to that, yeah. And so we have to step in each other's shoes, spend a little bit as country mice and a little bit of time as city mice, and understand where each side is coming from. Because if we do that, that's Tonglen.
Yes.
That's Tonglen.
Yes.
Can we Tonglen that?
It's very interesting how you're framing these states of consciousnesses, if you will, reflecting them back to where we're accessing our brain from, where are we operating from, what part of our consciousness, closer to the center, more the reptilian ancient brain, more the middle brain, more the forefront brain. And I really like that, because that's also the journey of the chakras.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also the journey of spiral dynamics and the mean development that happens over long epochs of period of time. So it's very, very interesting. And the fact that you're able to share the brain science behind it, I think it gives us more of an objective way to be able to look at ourselves with more compassion.
Yeah, that's where it
and just say, oh, they're this way or that way. Oh no, they're accessing this. How can we help them access a higher brain function, a new way, a higher way of being? So as you said, the Tao doesn't judge. the Tao accepts and the Tao receives and the Tao embraces, and anything can be poured into the Tao and the Tao allows.
Yeah.
And this I want to circle back to this piece here
Yeah.
around all the forms of stress, which
Yeah.
modern society already before this COVID experience was already at its heightened. And now there's all different types of stresses. And for some people, they're actually de-stressing. I was chatting with some friends today earlier who are feeling, wow, the stresses were coming up in the first 1, 2, 3 weeks of quarantine. And now they've come to the surface, they've released them or processed them or have accepted them. And now they're coming into more of an equilibrium. It might not be with everyone, and there's different
Right.
stages of these tensions. But one of the things that I learned from my masters that there's two ways to deal with stress.
Hmm.
One is the external way, and there's so many ways: tensing and then releasing, working out, going for a run, deep breathing, all these type of physiological interventions.
Hmm.
And then he said to me, he goes, if you go to the root of it, emotionally, mentally, psychically, spiritually, stress is caused because, as Buddha said, we have attachments.
Ah,
We have importance. We are placing importance on things that perhaps that might not be due so much importance. We are projecting onto things importance. We're wanting something our way. We're making attachments. And he said, if you can find in the moment of your anger, in the
ah,
moment of your stress, rather than start on the physiological realm, how about trying on the inside? What am I stressed about? Okay, I'm stressed about my relation, my sibling, as an example, my brother. Okay, it's blah blah blah. We got into arguments, whatever. Looking even deeper within, what am I holding of higher importance that I could lower the importance on?
uh-huh.
Oh well, I want him to show up on time, and this, and I want him to do this. Oh, okay, well, what if I start to relax my desire and the importance I put on him being there on time, fulfilling these particular obligations and contracts? What if I just relax, lower internal dial on attachment and importance down? And that turning the importance down, turning the
Yeah.
dial just starts to have a physiological
Oh, yeah.
ramification and ripple through the
Right.
body. Then we can go even deeper into the physiological. Okay, I'll shake out my body, I'll dance, I'll do whatever I need to do with my body to, expel that energy, right? So
Exactly.
this is the Taoist, this is the wisdom approach, going to the
Yeah.
center as well as outside in. We don't want to knock that down. That's valid.
Yeah.
But also starting at the core. What am I putting a lot more importance on that I don't need to?
Your explanation was beautiful, and there's a beautiful understanding of and actually the funny thing, I try to find in the spiritual the neurobiology, and there's an understanding in this about what we call, and of course we hear this in the deeper Vajrayanic practices of expectation leads to frustration. And the brain, literally, where the brain is an expectation, a pattern machine. So I heard this thing and I cracked up. It was one of those things that I sat there laughing at. It's called a violation of expectation, and the violation of expectation leads to our frustration. So it goes back to, well, the expectation is the attachment. It's
Yes.
the desire, or the desire for, or the aversion, the craving or the aversion to what's happening. And then we say, well, the four, there's uh, shame and there's praise and blame, there's reward and punishment, there's uh, pleasure and pain, and we go through those different understandings. And those the craving and aversion in the brain, there's actually parts of the brain that measure, literally your brain has a almost like a betting machine that says, it's called salience. It says, well, this reward, is it worth this punishment? And literally that's going on subconsciously. Well, this punishment, is it worth this reward? And there's an aspect of the understanding of the brain saying to us, or the system saying to us, going down to the heart, saying, how important is this to me? And is this about love? Because love, courage, I talk about the brain having compassion, and the heart having a compassionate aspect, a yin, and a courage heart, yang. And cravings and aversions have to be acknowledged by our deep self first before we'll actually even act on them. And that is why somebody will look and say, I'm going to jump on that grenade. No one wants to die. No one. And even though the person won't be around for it, they know it would be much more pain than to know, well, my family or the woman I love or my children are there or my friends are there. I don't want them to die. So I'm going to jump on this and take this, and no greater than for someone to lose their life for a friend or someone they love. Now, that craving to live is there. And the opposite, there's an aversion to the pain that would be felt for the rest of their life, knowing that they could have helped the people they love. So we go into craving and aversion. So there's different understandings of, as you mentioned, craving and aversion. And at the subtle levels of what are we attaching meaning to? Viktor Frankl, we look at these great teachers, and between stimulus and response, there's a pause, and in that pause lies your power. In those moments, we take the breath and we look at the craving and aversion, the understanding that every action or every movement is to alleviate or relieve a discomfort or a pain. There's a pain if we don't receive a pleasure. There's a pleasure if we don't receive a pain. And so how we interpret, because of how we develop higher levels of understanding, whether or not something is actually a pain, whether or not something is actually a pleasure. And the saying of what fascinates assassinates. It fascinates for the moment, but assassinates in the long run. Those things have to be measured. And as we grow, hopefully, like I said with myself, takes a little while, I'm a little slow. As we grow, hopefully we're able to monitor those things, and we may shoot the second dart the first time, but the second time we, as the Japanese say in golf, shoot second shot first. But you're right. You expressed it beautifully, because we do have to look at that. We have to soften. We have to look at those things and take them in those moments, and being able to calm our system down so we can.
Yeah.
That makes the difference.
Thank you so much, Billy. Through all your shares here, your vast intelligence and research and application.
That I debate. The intelligence, the research, yes. The intelligence, I'm still working on.
Well, for me, deeper intelligence, wisdom is embodying as best as you can the knowledge and the research that you do get. And I just want to thank you, because what I'm left with, the essence of what I'm left with, is a deepening and a softening of self and being and body, and
Yeah,
a deepening of breath, of inhalation, a deepening of exhalation and a
yeah.
lengthening of exhalation, and a deepening of the pause of inner reflection and awareness. And I want to thank you for transmitting and sharing your insight. How can our friends get in touch with you, find out more about what you're up to if they wish to find out and be served by you?
BillySundayMars.com. And also I have a Mars on Life and Love. It's my YouTube channel, and I put up videos to practice and to understand things. I'm looking really, as we mentioned, too, as I spoke with you about, let's with wonderful people like yourself, we're fortunate enough, and it's not that, again, we're just maybe a little bit further on the path than other people, and we're a little bit behind than others, so uh, I want people to know that they're not reaching out to someone who thinks they're a guru or somebody who thinks they're a master. I don't consider myself anything like that. I'm there. I may be their cheerleader one minute, their coach another minute, and their student in the next. And hopefully, if I have a brain in my head, I'm all three at once at the same time. So anybody who's and I thank them for their courage to reach out, and especially for us men. It's okay to say, hey, I mean, look at the great athletes who all have coaches. They want to get better. They hire a coach. Anybody who's Tom Brady's got a coach. He's got 6 Super Bowls. He's got coaches. Joe Montana had a coach. Tiger Woods had coaches. LeBron James has coaches.
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee had coaches. Everybody. We're all, if we want to get better, we need people who are more familiar with something in that process. And all I can do is say, I'm thankful and honored by anybody who gives me the. May I say one more thing before I go?
Please, please.
One of my favorite stories is of Rumi, a possible person who was coming to learn from him, came from far away, and he was walking down a dirt road. And as he came up over the hill, he came across a figure prostrated in the dirt in front of him, and he looked and he said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm looking to find Rumi." And the man lifts up his head, and it's Rumi. And Rumi, he says to Rumi, he says, "What are you doing? What are you prostrating here on the ground before me?" And he says, "If I can't kneel before you, I can't serve you. I can't expect you to listen to somebody who doesn't respect and honor you." That's what it's for. So that's pretty much how I look at it.
Thank you, brother. You know, while you were sharing, I was inspired to have a gathering of other brothers like us, you know, to bring some conscious brothers together
Yeah,
and
yeah.
deepen and continue our sharing and service to the world and
Love
living.
to, love to,
I
love
want to
to.
thank everyone joining us today. Thank you for your receptivity. Billy, I love you, man. Love
Love
you,
you.
brother. And keep
Thank
up the
you.
good work, and we're going to circle around soon. All
Yes,
the best. Okay.
thank you. Be well. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.